Discerning of spirits, or more literally in the Greek, discernings of spirits, because both are plural. And this has the idea of judging. So one way to think of it is, if you ever gotten a text message and you're trying to understand a person's tone, it's like, they said okay, like, are they happy about this? Are they angry? Like, what is behind this? Okay. And that's kind of like discerning of spirits, where you're trying to discern, okay, what spirit is this from? And so you can, God can empower someone to use natural reason to discern things. So, for example, if someone's teaching and they teach a false gospel, you can discern, oh, wow, okay, this person doesn't know the Lord. You might remember earlier in the story of Ananias and Sapphira, how I said, I think it's a word of knowledge that Peter knew that they were lying. Well, I believe it also was a discerning of spirits there too. And I believe spiritual gifts can be like colors of the rainbow, for example. It's not necessarily just one of the gifts. It can be two, or it can be a blend. It's not necessarily one or the other. Maybe my favorite example of, perhaps you could say, discernment in the Old Testament is Elisha and his servant was afraid, right? Because the enemy was coming up on them. And so Elisha prays that the servant's eyes would be opened. And it says on the mountains, there were horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. And so because God opened the servant's eyes, he was able to discern, oh man, okay, the ones with us are way more than the other people. 1 John 4:1. Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God. For many false prophets have gone out into the world. So here we're commanded to test the spirits, and it says many false prophets. Well, who are they? And it is very important to discern, to make sure that, Bobby and Raymond are the good guys. Or it's like, wait, if it's many false prophets, then perhaps there's some of our own community, right? That would fall under this category. And verse 2, by this you know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God, and every spirit that does not confess Jesus is not from God. This is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you heard was coming and now is in the world already. And so, what does it mean to confess Christ? And man, there are several things here. One, every single believer knows that, man, apart from Christ, there is no good that dwells in them. In other words, every believer knows that, man, they completely deserve the wrath of God, but they also know that Christ is able to save to the uttermost, and trusting in him and having his righteousness is all we need to be saved. And that is what it means to confess Christ. And man, there are several examples in my own life where I've really had to use discernment. One, man, I was a brand new believer. I was a believer for less than maybe 1 or 2 weeks. Like I was just been born again very, very recently. And I was with a group of friends, and I remember being confused because I believe all these would profess Christ, right? But I vividly remember we're in the car, they're playing this very vulgar song, they're all singing into it without any reservation, and just you look at their lives, and I thought, man, this is weird, because on one side they're confessing Christ, but on the other side there's like no concern, seems to be no concern for Christ at all, right? It didn't take me long as a new believer to figure out, oh man, okay, well, they're not believers because they're denying him with their lives, right? Now, believers all sin and mess up badly, but we don't live in sin. We fall into sin, we have perhaps tragic defeats, but we don't live in it. One thing I experienced, I think, is, I don't think everyone has this gift, right? But when I'm preaching, I often just have a strong, strong sense of what the Lord is doing. Or praying, when I pray, man, all the time I will feel a burden or the spiritual battle. And I always think of Daniel chapter 10, where he's praying and fasting, and how Michael the Archangel was fighting the Prince of Persia, long chapter to dive into. But man, I just believe I have a gifting just for to really feel that awareness or discerning of spirits in prayer. Once I was at this church revival as a super new believer. And I'm sitting there, and they give the invitation to come forward, and I'm watching people come forward, and at first it's real exciting, right? It's like, oh, people are coming forward. but just something just hit me. We're like, oh man, something is not right. And I got confused on what it was, so I'm looking around the room. But then I realized, man, everyone who's coming up, no one, no one seems really impacted by sin. Not that outward expressions are an evidence of faith, right? But it just, I believe it just became apparent that, oh, these people were just coming forward to just come forward. I want to be careful about this because I think some people get too carried away with their personal feelings when it's just pizza, too much pizza or something. But I had parked at a church parking lot. And I got so creeped out sitting there. I'm like, I'm heading out of here. I don't know what's going on with this. And it wasn't until several years later, I'm talking to a group of friends, and they mentioned some very, very bad things that had been going on with this church. And I was like, oh, well, I thought that was interesting. This is a really important gift from the church because the reality is there are wolves out there. And man, we do not want lost people or young, naive believers to be caught up in these groups and be drawn away from Christ. Man, there are certain groups who will teach, oh yeah, you need this to be saved, that Christ is not enough. Or perhaps you have groups that, man, they get so obsessed with signs and wonders and chasing all this nonsense, right? Now, I believe in the real signs and wonders, but there's groups who just have all this nonsense. And man, I don't want anyone being distracted with that either, right? I want them to be satisfied in the simplicity of Christ. And man, it's just so important to discern these things and to have true believers and unbelievers alike, right? Hearing from the good souled teachers, so they can be drawn to Christ.